Hello, everybody. I am Yor-El Francis,
And I'm Cecil Burrowes.
and welcome back to the Gentleman's Standard. Today's episode is Composure. The most dangerous man in the room isn't the loudest one, it's the one who hasn't reacted yet. Composure.
My word, that is such an awesome line. Um, wow. How do I get on track after that? The
You know,
the
I, I
Go ahead.
feel like it's been the story of my life.
Really?
I can't tell you how many times people, and I do it unwittingly, have come up to me and just are
Just
expecting a
are
reaction, and I really don't have one. Whether it's in the boardroom, whether it's on set, whether it's in just the middle of like the biggest, explosion, like people seem to always have wanted me to react with, I don't know what they want, some deep emotional outburst. But I'm usually pretty cool, calm, and calculated. And I think that is the truth about composure because it makes you hone in. And I think that's what makes you the most dangerous person in the room because you are not reacting. You're experiencing everything,
sure.
but you're finding a way through all the shit. That for me is composure.
So I think you touched on this in command and presence when you've been building the blueprints and dropping the breadcrumbs along the way, which gets into discipline, right?
Mm.
And what you're articulating to me and how it hits me is composure isn't necessarily suppressing yourself when
Mm-mm.
all this is going. It's you nailed it when you said calculated. That's the word that hit me, right? That is all about discipline. It's how you choose to show up in a certain setting, what you choose to
Mm-hmm.
let impact you or not impact you because of how you want to be perceived within this particular space. um Suppression is debt, right?
Mm.
And that is literally an element of I'm going to ensure that I um, am safe in this space versus I don't have to react to every bit of bullshit that comes my way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My level of panic is not your level of panic. And you're not going to force me to have the same red line that you do. And for me, that's the difference with being composed versus uh, being a wilting flower in a room with bad actors. From this standpoint, that's why I really, really like this topic and why it ties so heavily back to our point around establishing standards, gentlemanly
Mm.
standards, from that standpoint. My in my mind, the whole suppression element of this is kind of burying yourself, where you're not. Um, I taught it's the flight to safety, right? And it's ends up in many places, when you suppress yourself more times than not, you end up in places you don't want to be. You didn't intend to be, from that standpoint, and you lose some credibility. Composure, however, and the discipline and the calculated approach ensures that individuals see you as somebody that provides weight to the room. I know we just talked about weight in our last topic, but you bring the weight to the room when you're calculated in how you respond. This person's not panicking, pausing to ensure that you steady yourself on your response. For me, I have had better success on not reacting, um, in a way that takes myself out of my own skin or wilting away from the moment, but more so giving myself a moment for whatever the point is that needs to breathe before I respond versus react, if that makes sense.
Completely. I mean, it's like I think that composure can be measured, and you've already spoke on it, as a cost, because it can segue into you're in a leadership position,
Hmm.
um, and your composure translates to how the other person reacts. And that could be A, from receiving information, B, from being publicly challenged, C, from delivering difficult news. I mean, it runs the gamut. And I think that someone who's composed, who's centered, who understands the weight of leadership, who understands grooming towards greatness, who understands being the, magnet for whatever it is that the company is trying to achieve,
Yeah.
and you're leading the way, your composure shines through. It is that beacon, and it can tilt the ship or it can lead the ship. And I have always erred on the side of, you know, I am cool as ice, and nothing is going to break through.
Mhm.
And I will be able to deliver whatever that is, sometimes with a smile on my face or sometimes just deadpan. But that's my style and my composure.
I got good at this from failing at this, right?
Mm,
A trusted resource and a peer of mine put me through a practice on an initiative that I had led, and it was kind of a postmortem of the program that we stood up. And that whole postmortem is kind of an investigative analysis around what went well, what didn't go well, what can we learn from it, how can we be better as we execute down path, right? And anybody that's getting into this environment is going to go through that if you're doing it the right way. You've got to assess, did this thing come out great, and it's the critics on a movie you worked on, the feedback that you're receiving from that standpoint. That's how we do kind of investigative analysis on anything we execute against. And it was funny, as I was going through the process, and we were going through this, and I had somebody else leading the engagement, and they were asking us due diligence questions around, why'd you do this, why'd you go down this path, etc. In my mind, I'm receiving this well, and I'm responding and reacting on the questions being posed because I was the lead of it, and I had partners engaged, that were part of the execution of this effort in the room.
mhm,
But I felt, it's I'm the leader, I'm the one that's running this. I need to answer and address questions, and everything that went wrong, I need to tell them exactly how it went, and I need to match the energy as to why it took place. And the perception out of that, and my partner, who I value her opinion quite well, said, "Listen, you came across as um, defensive. I don't know if that was
mm,
your intention, but that's how it felt to several of us that were listening to how you reacted and how you responded." And I was like, that was not my intention at all. I was just trying to paint the picture for y'all and illustrate, and add the punctuation points on where they needed to be. And she was like, that's not how it came across.
mm,
So I showed up in that space uncomposed, right? As somebody that
mm,
was really not receptive to feedback. And that was not my intention at all, quite frankly. And that was a learning moment for me because at the time I'm a senior executive with others in the room, and you got to show up. You got to show like you're a leader who can lead and be even keeled through the process. And I took a moment away and said, I'm never going to show up like that again. Like, how did I read that so wrong? From that standpoint. And it helped me the next time I had to come in and defend, because any and everything you do, you have to go through risk committees that say, like, are you going to break some things by doing this? And when you're in banking, you got to go, any and everything that you do has to go through a risk committee. And if I hadn't gotten that feedback and really had a chance to course correct and reset, um, I would have gone in that meeting and done the same thing, and probably with that in that wrong setting, had the initiative I was working on be shelved, which was not what we were trying to have happen. So I what I did is, before I entered into that session, I tried to prepare myself in how these things could be perceived, what I could anticipate that we were going to hear, how would I react, and how do you react in the sense of where you want to make sure you understand their perspective and where they're coming from, and how you respond to that from their chair. The other way, I wasn't paying attention to how you thought about it. I just was going to show you why you were wrong. That is the quickest way to get yourself in a suppression state or an adversarial state. Composure ensures that you look at it from other people's perspective on the thing that you're bringing to the table. And if you do it that way, it allows you to respond in a way that seems more even keel and reacting, and allow yourself time to receive what's being articulated. I didn't do that. I was really quick to jump and pounce. If you pause for a second, let what they say breathe a little bit, you will find more times than not that the minute you start responding and reacting, it comes to a place of where it's a partner trying to execute on something versus something that's somebody that's having to defend themselves. It shows up differently.
I agree. And I also think that composure is a part of knowing your worth and what you bring to the table. Because I think that if internally you understand your value, and if internally you understand you have built that foundation, um, and have that character, I think that translates to composure. And it translates to how you react, how you're perceived, and how you walk away, or what you walk away with from, whatever meeting or circumstance you may have been in. And I think that it's definitely a character and foundation are like the cornerstones for me of composure.
Yeah, to back that up, right? And you go from a leadership based perspective. Research has consistently shown that 90% of top performers across all industries, quite frankly, have high emotional intelligence, and that is key, right? That contributes to 67% of leaders' overall effectiveness, and that's in assessments that we do. It's not a soft skill. It's the single most important performative variable that a gentleman, can have in a leadership role. You have to develop it. You have to be composed and calculated. And it's not necessarily you got to be nice, right? And from that standpoint, you've got to be calculated in how you're going to respond and react to certain things. That's how you become effective. Is that emotional intelligence and being aware of it? That's the composure element, in my humble opinion.
um, I want to talk about composure on set and how that can translate or be mistranslated uh, into something else. So I'll illustrate a story. I was directing a show called The First Wives Club, and we're moving through the day. Producers were like, hammering off notes about an actor's performance. And as the director, your job is to then take that note and carry it to the actor. Um, and so, everybody's trying to do their jobs. The producers are doing their jobs because they want a certain something, and I'm doing my job because they told me they want a certain something, and the actor has to do their job because that's certain something they were hired for. Um, so I'm explaining to the actor the note, and she just starts crying. I mean, she just breaks down and just is bawling. And she's like, they didn't want me for the job. They wanted to hire a different actress. Why are me giving me these notes? Um, and it became no longer about the notes.
Yeah, yeah,
It was where she was mentally, right? And so I could have just be like, oh my God, what the fuck?
yeah.
And walk away. Um, I could have gotten uncomfortable. I could have been defensive. I could have just blazed through it. But I chose to just remain present for her. And I let her, uh, you know, do her thing. She hugged me, cried, and got through the moment. Um, and I was just silent. And she went through the arc. And then afterwards, she heard the note and walked away and executed what needed to be executed. Um, and the story for me is, I think the key was composure. Um, I think that if I hadn't been composed, how could I have helped her through that moment? If I hadn't been focused, if I had just had her throw me off
Hmm.
with her being uncomposed, then we both would have been, you know, uh, on opposing ends. But I just allowed her to um, go through the emotions of what she needed to go through. And then we were able to get to the end game, which was executing the note that these producers who had hired both she and I um, for the job. Um, Basically, if I panicked, she would have panicked more. If I had become frustrated, she would have become even more frustrated. And remaining calm was sort of her guide back,
Hmm.
to that compass. And for me, that I think it's illustrative of composure in a leadership position.
That's I've been privy to some of those. It is jarring in some instances, and it's tough
Yeah.
to figure out because more times than not, you're trying to figure out how to respond in that situation because it's been ramped up to from 1 to 100 really quick. I had a
It's not why you went, it's not why you it's not why you went there. It's not what you're expecting, but it is what it is.
and now you got to deal with it. You got to figure out how to get through it. I had a leader who had an amazing skill set on. She prided herself on this, and she had this line that she always stated. It was one of the leaders I learned a lot from, just simply because how she was able to do exactly this really really well. And she said, I would always be able to tell somebody how to go to hell, but they would enjoy the ride. It's like okay, from that standpoint.
That's a great way of putting
That's
it.
a great way to put it. She's like, go to hell, but you'll enjoy the ride from the way that she put it by the time she's done. The thing for me, one of the experiences I ran into where I saw somebody, you put it from a set-based perspective, composure in the boardroom is really, really, really important. Because what tends to happen more times than not, when you're debating a topic, and you've hit that stage on where it's truly being debated. It's whether something's going to get funded and activated upon, which gives you and your team work, either to work that you want to do or work you don't want to do, right? Takes money away from one initiative and applies it to another, takes you back months, potentially could cost roles and jobs, right? If you have things missing that you can't execute against, there's a whole bunch of things that goes into every decision that needs to be made, and you're consistently debating. And I was privy to a situation where we had two executives debating something, um, male executive, female executive, and the male executive and the point that he had was right. Where he was going, what he was trying to do and the points that he was trying to make around the reporting that was necessary, how they needed to do some other things that were high priority items for the chief executives that are part of our bank, versus what she was trying to convey was a more important issue with not a lot of facts behind it, but she had the passion element that she had nailed down. And you could tell clearly she was getting all under a lot of people's skin, and they were purely getting under people's skin because she didn't really understand the business from that standpoint, but she knew the thing that she was trying to sell, right? And they're all like, but you're not getting it. We work on X, Y, and Z. We're deployed against this. They tried to explain nice at first, then they got a little annoyed, and then it went from there and it went from there and it highly debated. And then you could just tell this male executive blew a gasket. Now, what happens when that occurs? You could tell that they had reached their point because he blew his gasket. What happens is the dynamic shifts because
Mm.
the credibility shifts. Once you are no longer showing up as a cool, calm, collected customer in that type of setting, you are now the emotional one, and you have to act from a place of emotion. So the things that he started spewing out went off of, listen, this is why we have to do it. These are the reasons why, from a bank based perspective, this makes sense. This is the investment we have. This is where the resources we have are decked against other more important things that we have to solve for from a regulatory based perspective, which takes precedent on anything else we need to do. He started going in places of emotion, and now he starts attacking her personally around her not really understanding. So what do you think happens with a room at that point? There's an element of where they start feeling for her and her point. So she starts
Hmm.
gaining instant credibility on something that never should have gotten the air of day. And that's an
Hmm.
instance where I saw an executive lose their composure in a high stake environment, and it cost them. Why? He ended up getting removed from the triage unit that was solving for this because of how he showed up. Because what happens when that occurs? Other people notice it. That was unacceptable how he behaved himself. She's going to go complain. Others, males, females, others that were on that call and in that environment are like that. That's not how an executive performs. This person gets removed from and he has to eat it. So he has no chance to come back and say, listen, this is what I intended. He did send an email apologizing, but by that time it's too late. Now the team that's remaining has to fight that good fight to make the case why they cannot do what she's pitching that needs to be done. And it took a little bit of time to do that, but cooler heads prevailed, and executives got in a layer up leadership team got involved, which they never should have had to if you just were able to maintain your composure in that instance. And quite frankly, that happened several times in a couple different segments. It's always the ones that were able to stay cool, calm, collected, and provide you a challenge to your insight, got around, gave you the time to receive it, and were ready to just combat you on different areas that eventually it may take a little longer than you want it to occur, but your point gets made. And you don't run the risk of being seen as a hothead that can't be in these particular rooms when the rubber hits the road.
Do you think that there's a thing as such as composure being dishonest or composure being too practiced or too polished? I know I've been told in performances that I was
Okay.
too polished. I've been told that, I've
Uh,
been too
uh,
composed.
sure, sure.
So do you think that there's a point where composure
No.
becomes
And here's why.
dishonest?
Great question. The people that are usually telling you that about yourself, if you, I'm one that studies the room. And I learned this trade being in sales, always negotiating. You read the room, you read where you need to go, you read your strategy, right? And that's what you and I have been talking about. You got to be calculated in strategy on why you enter a room where you're trying to accomplish. In absence of that, what generally are you? A hothead who's trying to figure out. You go through this flow state where you just go to different places in the room and everything can carry you and all that. The people that are usually telling you, "Wow, you're really composed. You like this didn't get to you that way." What ends up happening is
Mhm.
and not hothead. Hothead's the wrong way of putting it. That's my viral moment, probably. But extremely reactionary. And what ends up happening if you're extremely reactionary is you're going to react sometimes the wrong way. And some of those folks just don't care. There's a certain decorum with being in spaces on leadership. That's the weight that leaders carry. It's a part of what happens is while people are running out of a burning building, you have to walk because you have to make sure that others are out.
Mhm.
You have to make sure that structures and things are cared for. You have to make sure that everything that needs to be done before you exit is done. That is the weight that leaders carry. And when individuals are telling you, I don't like that you walked out of there really slow. You should have run with us. You should have run out first. You should have done this. You should have done that. You recognize you can do that because you're not built to be a leader, in my humble opinion. And I've seen people, and the reason why this touches on me, I've been in that space where people are like, wow, you just didn't say anything. I didn't say anything because it wasn't my time to say something relative to what was addressed or what put in front of us.
Clearly, we have similar foundations because I clearly feel the same way. Um, and when that happens, I'm just kind of confused because it's just like,
Yeah, yeah.
really? Um, and so as a saying in Liberia, I don't pick it up, I don't lay it down. I just keep moving. Um, but I believe that there is a difference, though, between composure and being emotionally unavailable. So, in my story, if I had been
Yeah.
emotionally unavailable, um, I would not have been able to be empathetic to the actor, and I would not have been able to get us, the two of us, because we both had a goal. The goal was getting her to understand the note and then getting her to execute the note on film. We would have not achieved that. So I feel that the two aren't correlated. And sometimes people think that composure means that you're not, being composed means you're not emotionally available. And I don't think that
Yeah,
that's the case.
it's funny because would you call those little instances where the blowups occur where we didn't anticipate it? It's kind of a crisis, right? It's kind of crisis management.
Mm.
So one of the things that we saw, I remember this stat that came across us was um, a leadership study that was done in 2024 across 487 senior leaders found that emotional intelligence had the highest correlation to crisis management effectiveness. It's the strongest
Mm.
predictor, which lands well when things go wrong and how you are able to effectively manage that. And the way I learned that, to your point around the actor with the note, is I rushed in early in my career, was running branches with a partner of mine who had been doing this for years, and I got my first robbery, and running several different branches, and you get your first robbery, it is like, oh my God, okay, is everybody okay? I'm gonna go check on my staff. We get to the branch when we get a call because you're running a bunch of different branches, and police are lined up outside. There's an investigative unit inside the branch. They're doing all the things they need to do to make sure they're tracking who the person is. I'm like, okay, I got to go talk to my people. They're like, sir, wait out here. You're no, no, no. You don't understand. I lead these group. And my partner is looking at me like he's going to learn today. And it's me reacting in a way without composure and kind of understanding the situation. I didn't have that emotional intelligence as a leader at that point. I was ready to rush in to the fire without a plan or strategy. You've got to be emotionally intelligent. You've got to be composed. You've got to be calculated and understand how you're supposed to behave in these particular settings. It takes time, it takes study, it takes research. But once you do that, you fools rush in. We do not, right? You're emotionally intelligent individual who's composed. We don't rush in. We're calculated about how we move. That's a difference. I had to learn that hard lesson before I got to the point of where I was able to react accordingly.
But then we get challenged and get triggered by people who want to challenge that composure. And I
Mm.
find it,
Mm.
my triggers happen when people try to challenge my leadership and challenge my direction. And that's when it starts to eat into the composure. I'm still able to be composed, but that is the trigger because internally I'm like, this motherfucker, you
Oh,
know. uh, but externally, that's not what I'm giving. But for me, that can be a challenge at times, not always, but
for
sometimes.
me, my trigger is people who are being disingenuous, right? Being obtuse and acting unaware when they know better. Um, for me,
Uh,
I have a hard time holding my tongue in that. And what you will find is I'm trying to figure out a calculated way of coming at it because you and I know from a Liberian-based perspective, when you get into certain rooms and spaces, we would love to yell. When we're ready to let go and it's like a rising phoenix. It's like, hey, my man, right?
we are
Hey, my
loud.
man, what are we doing? It's you hit that.
I mean, that's just Africans in
That's just
general. We're
African
loud.
in general, and you're trying to get your point across, and you're no, no, no. The hardest thing is stopping the little sly smile as you when you know you got them from that standpoint. And individuals who are disingenuous, who are sick of being disingenuous, I have to spend a lot more time on how to remain composed and calculate on how to react. Because what I'm going to do is we're now in a now we're in a debate where I need to arm myself. Now I start thinking about ways to disarm you, win this argument, go back and forth, and try to tie things together. Because now it's a matter of trying to win in this engagement, right? My trigger is that, right? It's individuals who are being disingenuous, being disrespectful, trying to undermine in some instances, and you catch them because for you and I who've been in these halls for a long, long time, there's not much we haven't seen. And folks that are new to the business that come in and try to ruffle our feathers, you got to try a lot harder than that from that standpoint.
And the interesting thing about that for me is the triggers are how you build
That's a great point.
composure
That's a great point.
because they test they test
Hmm.
your boundaries and they test your barriers. And so those trigger points of whomever trying to break through your borders, for me, builds up a stronger composure,
You've got
if
to
that
be
makes any
tested to know how
sense.
you react.
Um,
To your point. Yeah. Yep.
Basically, it's like because it's like that. It's like then I know how far I can allow them to take it, and I know where my end is. And for me, that's how I build up a stronger
You and
composure.
and and here's the deal: how it actually pays for itself. If you have high emotional intelligence, there are numbers that back up, and research shows that professionals with high emotional intelligence and who have that developed composure, that calculated approach, um, self-regulation, shall we say, and just awareness around how they're showing up, they earn on average $29,000 more per year than those who haven't.
Interesting. That's
That's
a
quite
great
the number.
stat.
That is quite the number. It is not a soft skill set, as we say, right? It's an asset. It's a financial asset. You tend not to talk yourself out of consideration. You tend not to talk yourself out of opportunity. You tend not to talk yourself out of being seen as a leader with executive presence. You'll notice people that have strong executive presence are extremely emotionally intelligent, extremely calculated, and extremely quiet. Um, they allow things to
Hmm.
breathe before they respond and react because it carries weight. So keep that in mind.
And I think that it's important to understand that composure isn't something you have or don't have. I know for me, composure was built. Um, and composure, brick by brick to where my composure is now. And I think that that speaks to emotional intelligence clearly. And it also speaks to experience. Um, I'll never forget, I went, I had a job, it was in a rural area in Georgia, and it was a commercial. And my call time was, I don't know, 4 a.m. Uh, and I show up and everybody's just looking at me.
Yeah.
What are you doing here? I was the only black
Okay.
person
Okay.
there. That's number one.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, I'm Yor-El.
Uh-huh.
You called me? Job. And so, I mean, I literally went through all the stairs from, the PA to just the receiving it until the first AD, it was like, oh, you're Yor-El. And it clicked and his emotional intelligence, he was like, okay, here it is. Here, this is where we go. And he sort of like, you know, got into gear. But on the flip side, had I just been reactive, and
Mhm.
just was immediately offended,
Yeah.
by all these damn stairs, I could have walked away and lost the job for the day. So I think that it's, emotional intelligence definitely builds up your composure and it allows you to react in settings like that where it's an antagonistic surrounding. You're, not exactly in the friendliest of places, but you gotta, get through it. And that's what I did.
So the one thing, as I start thinking about your point around building it. There's a lot of folks that build composure, right? We depending on your family, your background, your blueprint, your not a lot of us come up being emotionally intelligent. And quite frankly, why I love the fact that we're getting in these conversations today, gentlemen are being taught not to be emotionally intelligent. And that's why you and I want to start having these discussions, because it's all about being the alpha male. And, you know, I don't care if people are offended, F them if they're offended, right? You need to be the primary in the room. You need to dominate everything, and everybody will come to your beck and call because you're that way. And it's like, no, the person that's telling you that is worth $20 million and they're selling you something. And they can show up however the hell they want in flip flops and shoes and act like a complete a hole. You don't have that. You don't have that benefit. You have to be emotionally intelligent around how you show up, and you have to be composed and calculated. Um, I think about the ways that I show up. You talked about from that standpoint. I've been challenged in every which way, shape, form, or fashion you can imagine being in the banking industry. There have been times where I'm an older individual in a space of a bunch of young folk looking at me like, what's this old fogey doing here? A male in a space where I'm trying to have a voice and it's female based conversations, and trying to make sense of why I should be listened to in that space. An African American in a room, and the only African American in a room, and you know for damn sure there's some folks look wondering, why are you even in this room? It happens. And in spaces where I'm told I'm not African enough from that standpoint, like, you've been in the States how long? Oh, listen to you, you've lost this. When was the last time you were home? And yeah, right. So
Welcome to
I've
the
experienced
club.
it from every which shape, form, or fashion. I've been lucky enough to be around a bunch of different ethnicities and friends. Proud to say I have friends across all spectrums, male, female, and every different sector you can imagine, from this standpoint. And it helps to frame the way that I try to show up in spaces. And because once you get down to understanding the rooms that you're going to be in, you just don't, you let those little things go as it relates to being composed. Those things are going to happen. It's how you react to the point that you made, how you could have reacted when you showed up in that room and individuals are giving you the death stares, like, who the hell is this guy I think he is? And why is he in here? Is he here delivering food and things along those lines? We've all gotten that. But for me, when I enter in
Exactly.
rooms, because that's something I actually think about, it's my preparation process, right? Especially if it's a high stakes meeting. What have I done before I get to the meeting? How have I prepared myself? Do I know my material? What am I there for? What am I delivering? Do I know my material back and forth to where you can't off talk me off a point? And by the way, I'm going to do that every time I have to go. I don't trust my on rest of my laurels where I've learned it a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 weeks ago. Before I go in this meeting, I'm boning up on my notes, giving myself the opportunity to practice, right, from a composure based perspective, and asking myself questions that would throw me off. Disingenuous people that acting like you don't get my point, want to challenge me. How are you going to respond? How are you going to react? If you don't live by yourself, you live with some significant other, test them, ask them to ask you questions from that standpoint. Or if you have somebody in your trusted circle, reach out to them. If it's something that's high stakes, that's going to have an impact on your work, make sure you go through that process, right? The situation after it's been done, if you get thrown off a little bit, right, have the opportunity to do an assessment around what threw you off, how did you respond, how do you react, and how you make sure it doesn't happen again. Also ask for feedback, right? As you're going through this process, how did I come across in that meeting? What did you see? Did I keep my executive presence? Did I seem composed? Did I seem calculated? You got to ask those questions. People don't ask those questions. More times than not, hey, what'd you think about the presentation? What did I build in it? Ask about yourself. That's an emotionally intelligent person that says, I know, I need to know how I did, how you saw me in that session. That's a part of what I do to try to make sure I maintain the standard and others see the standard I'm trying to convey when I'm in.
In closing, I just want to relay that composure is not passivity or being passive. Um, I feel like it's actually power in reserve. And I feel like the man who's developed his ability to choose his response is definitely the one who can be trusted with what actually matters. And for me, that's what composure is all about. It's trust. It's trust in yourself, and it's the trust that others place in you, and then it's the trust in leadership
Awesome
to
point.
carry it forward.
Awesome point. I love that. Love that.
Well, thank you everybody for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next podcast where we'll
Amazing.
be
Y'all have a great
talking
day.
legacy. Take care, everybody.